Skibidi Toilet has been out a little over a year now and has now become an extremely successful series. So let's look into the history of Skibidi Toilet and see how it went from this to this. Skibidi Toilet, like most things, started out simple. It started as a singing toilet head, and that was pretty much it. But now, over the course of time, the creator of Skibidi Toilet decided to turn this into something bigger. Before we get into the meat of the story, let's first talk about the mastermind behind Skibidi Toilet. Alexei Drasimov created Skibidi Toilet in February of 2023. Little did he know, this single video would change the course of his career forever. According to Forbes, Alexei formed the idea of Skibidi Toilet from a reoccurring nightmare that he had, and it shows in his earlier episodes. The toilets are mindlessly singing, and there's something uncanny about it all. So whenever you think of Skibidi Toilet, you're probably thinking that it's brain rot and something that's only meant for kids. Well, I hate to break this news to you, but it's not really brain rot. Yes, the first couple of episodes are more targeted towards the brain rotty side, but once you get further into the series, you'll soon realize that this evolves beyond what it was originally intended for. If you go back on Defuk Boom's channel, you'll notice several shorts that came before Skibidi Toilet. Now, you might be wondering why Defuk Boom made these random YouTube shorts. Well, what if I told you Skibidi Toilet wasn't the series he originally planned on making? Defuk Boom made a community post way back stating that he would make shorts to fill in the gap between the release of his old series, Multiverse of Beatbox. The Multiverse of Beatbox is a completely different thing, so we'll talk about that in a later video. I do have a theory though. What if Skibidi Toilet is a blended version of his original Multiverse of Beatbox story mixed in with his Skibidi Toilet story? So maybe there's elements of that series within Skibidi Toilet. But that's just a theory though, so don't take my word for it. Alright, let me try to defend myself on why I think Skibidi Toilet is not brain rot and is in fact the greatest series of all time. The first couple of episodes are basically just bite-sized morsels of complete and utter nonsense. But once we get into episode 7, things start to change. We are introduced to the first main character, the G-Man Toilet. Since most people that are watching this video are probably 10 years old, let me quickly explain to you what the G-Man actually is.
Dr. Freeman, I realize this moment may not be the most convenient for a heart-to-heart. But I had to wait until your friends were otherwise occupied.
The G-Man is a character from one of the most influential games in video game history, Half-Life. He's actually quite mysterious and doesn't really have an origin. Alright, there. Now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to the first major point of Skibidi Toilet. So we have one of the main villains, but what about a hero? Well, that comes in episode 18. We are finally introduced to one of the main protagonists of Skibidi Toilet, Titan Cameraman. There are actually a plethora of main characters in Skibidi Toilet, but we'll get to that a little bit later on into this video. Just 2 episodes after episode 18, we are introduced to one of the first big fights of Skibidi Toilet. The G-Man flies in from basically nowhere and tries to defeat Titan Cameraman. Titan Cameraman gets distracted and actually gets his arm blown off and ends up retreating after this. You're gonna see a lot of this in Skibidi Toilet. At some points it's gonna look like the good guys are winning, but then the toilets come in and do something insanely crazy that sets the good guys back a lot. Hey, just because Skibidi Toilet has its own formula doesn't mean that the series is bad. Just wait, it gets so much better from here. Alright, so after the encounter with the G-Man Toilet, we're finally starting to get a progressive story. In episode 24, Defuk Boom sets it up as if the camera people are losing the battle. Then at the end of that episode, he introduces a new race that comes in to save the day. This race is called the Speakerhead race. From now on, I'm gonna call both the camera people and the speaker people the Alliance, since that's their official name of their faction. So this Speakerman race actually has a theme song, and this theme song is the iconic Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. Okay, so we have 2 races. One has a Titan, and the other doesn't. Well, okay. The other Titan shows up in episode 26. This episode is just like any other episode, but towards the end, we are introduced to the Speakerman's Titan. This is Titan Speaker Man. You're probably going to start to notice a pattern in this series where the good and or bad guys get overpowered, but then a big, new, amazing character shows up to save the day. After episode 26, we go through a couple of filler episodes. Filler episodes 28 and 29 introduce 2 new characters. In episode 28, we are introduced to the Mafia Toilet. In episode 29, though, we are introduced to a much more powerful toilet called the Glitch Toilet. And this specific episode was kind of a little unsettling for me when I first watched it. So, the Glitch Toilet ends up killing all of the troops in the surrounding area, right? And then after he kills them off, he goes towards the POV and then completely decapitates his camera head. And then the episode ends off with the camera head focusing in on the decapitated body of the POV cameraman. The first time I watched this, I was genuinely freaked out because this was like the first time something horrific has happened in this series. So why did Defuk Boom decide to make this section of this particular short focus in on this cameraman? It's pretty cryptic. I'm assuming Defuk Boom wanted to symbolize the evolution of the toilets and how they aren't just singing annoying toilet heads anymore. They're actually a big threat. In episode 30, 2 cameramen are held captive. As they are struggling, the scientist toilet emerges. We've seen him before, but now we actually get to see what he's been cooking up. He releases a parasite toilet that ends up controlling the cameraman in front of the POV. And then after this episode, more episodes will introduce more cameramen being affected by this parasite that the scientist has cooked up. And this starts immediately after episode 30. In episode 31, this becomes way more apparent. The toilets partner up with the infected cameramen and infected speakermen to try and take over. A little side note here about this episode. As I rewatched this episode for this video, I noticed that one cameraman next to the big one motioned toward his shoes. It's interesting to see old memes coexist within this series. I feel like it allows people who are slightly older to get a kick out of it while not alienating the core target audience of this series. Episode 32 is quite a big one. In this episode, the toilets are overpowering the Alliance as usual until Titan Speakerman comes in to save them. He ends up fighting a huge military toilet, but becomes too distracted to even notice the scientist toilet atop a building behind him. The scientist then releases 2 parasite toilets, and after finishing the fight, Titan Speakerman notices this and removes one parasite toilet, but fails to remove the other. Titan Speakerman is now infected and won't be cured until very later on. After this episode, the dark phase of Skibidi Toilet begins. In episode 33, chaos is unleashed. Titan Speakerman is now partnered up with the G-Toilet. G-Toilet then blows up what seems to be the YouTube headquarters, which is kind of a nice metaphor that goes to show how big Skibidi Toilet actually is. After this, a pretty creepy scene unfolds. A Skibidi Toilet mutant stares down the POV. He then walks in a fast manner, saying the Skibidi phrase in reverse, and jump scares the cameraman. Keep in mind, this series basically started as a way for Boom to cope with his nightmares. Episode 34 starts a turning point within the Alliance. The POV runs into a warehouse, and then a cameraman that we will soon see a little bit later on in this series bursts in. After being stopped by 2 cameramen, the parasite that's affecting him is vulnerable. After seeing an opening, another cameraman comes in to remove the parasite. Episode 35 starts out positive, with the cameraman finding a cure for the parasite, but then turns negative real fast with the surprise appearance of the G-Toilet and infected Titan Speakerman. The scientist cameraman tries to shoot his anti-parasite beam towards Titan Speakerman, but he's way too big for that to even do anything to him. In response to this, Titan Speakerman aims towards the base. As he's about to attack, the scientist throws the gun towards the POV and gives him a thumbs up. This gesture will be used sporadically throughout this series. There also might be another gesture that might be slightly offensive, but we'll get to that one later. In episode 37, we start off by seeing how much progress the scientist cameramen have made with creating a cure. They now have a giant tank that's capable of reaching multiple targets at a time. It can also attempt to heal Titan cameraman, which is exactly what they do in episode 38. The laser is shot, and it seems for a moment that it might actually reach Titan Speakerman, but it gets interrupted by an upgraded G-Toilet who now has laser guns, armor, and a jetpack. It might be safe to say that the Alliance is looking pretty cooked at the moment. Episode 39 is going to be another major turning point for the Alliance. In this episode, all seems to be going well until a pretty armored toilet pins down the POV. But then, a strange TV humanoid walks into frame. He then flashes his TV beams, and the toilets become stuck in a trance-like state. If you notice, the toilet that pinned down the POV actually has a protective covering over his flusher. So this means that the toilets are learning and evolving with each and every moment. That's the one thing I like about Boom's storytelling. One side isn't going to be stupid. They're both equally as smart, which just means they have to attempt to outsmart the other side. I really like this because it makes it feel like the opposition isn't actually an unfair fight. So, good job, Boom. I really like that. In episode 40, a bigger TV humanoid appears. And right beside the POV, a TV man offers him a protective lens. This prevents the POV from being blinded, killed, or stunned. These beams of light that the TV people possess will come into a much grandeur scale later on into this series. Episode 41 introduces us to the TV race's Titan. He emerges from a shadowy cloud and produces a red beam that basically acts as a suicide bomb towards the toilets. Each and every toilet flushes themselves until there are none left. He then gets himself up and looks down at the POV with an emoticon on his screen. This is Titan TV Man. The TV Men race are actually kind of the most personality-filled race, mainly because they have the ability to present an image on their TV screens. Episode 42 is a filler episode, but introduces a toilet that will play some type of role later on into the series. Episode 43 showcases how quickly the toilets can adapt to their opponent's powers. The toilets develop sunglasses that can withstand the TV men's light beams. After realizing their TV beams do nothing, the TV people leave. The POV looks towards the closest TV man, and he walks into a cloud with a winky smiley face. Episode 44 has Titan TV Man fighting some toilets until he is upgraded with Speakerman technology. This helps boost the sound, which ends up becoming so loud, it breaks the sunglasses of the toilets. After destroying the toilet, infected Titan Speakerman appears and is ready to fight Titan TV Man. They both start fighting in episode 45, and eventually Titan Speakerman flies away after getting one of his speakers stabbed off. I find it funny how Titan TV Man just teleports with an annoyed look on his face. In episode 46, nothing really happens except for the fact that Titan TV Man is still chasing Titan Speaker Man. In episode 47, however, we finally get a conclusion to this chasing sequence. Titan TV Man teleports in and is introduced to the G-Toilet. He ends up using his TV screen to try and kill the G-Toilet, but gets distracted by a flying buzzsaw toilet, who gets rid of some of his upgrades. After killing the distraction, G-Toilet completely destroys all of his equipment except for his chain grappler. He pulls G-Toilet towards him to try and kill him, but instead gets a knife to his screen from infected Titan Speaker Man. After this, TV Man teleports away. The POV gets shot by the G-Toilet, and then after this, we are introduced to Boom's character, the secret agent. Or at least we're introduced to him in the full version. The short version just abruptly ends. By episode 39, Boom started creating long-form versions of his short-form Skibidi Toilet content. If you were watching Skibidi Toilet at this point in time, you could have 1. Continued to watch the shorts versions and sometimes get cool music associated with some characters, or 2. Watch the long-form versions to get the better picture of what is happening. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be watching the long-form versions to get the most out of what I am commentating on. I may come back to the shorts here and there, but that'll be later on in the video. Episode 49 starts with the POV looking upon the destruction of the city. The G-Toilet passes by, creating even more destruction within the area. After looking at the damage, the POV gets knocked down by a toilet. Once this happens, the toilet approaches the POV, gets on top of him, but then gets shot directly in the side of the face. The POV turns around to focus on a new character. This character is TV Woman. She shines her bright orange TV beam and burns the toilet alive. She then decides to show off her skills by detaching her TV head and mind controlling an upcoming buzzsaw toilet. She then directs the toilet away from the POV and ends up blowing up the toilet. After reattaching her head, several toilets emerge behind the TV troupe. TV Woman brightens up her screen with a purplish hue, and the POV is stuck in a trance-like state and ends up actually hugging the TV Woman. After finishing the teleportation process, the POV is dropped off in the cameraman headquarters. Immediately after this episode, we pick up right where we left off. The cameraman headquarters is under attack, and the POV rushes outside to see what is happening. Several cameramen and speakermen are running away, except for one. This character will become important later on, so pay attention to this plunger-wielding cameraman. Everything seems lost until the toilets start developing worried expressions. The POV then turns around to see an upgraded Titan cameraman saving the day. He starts absolutely destroying every single toilet. The fire-breathing toilet toilet gets up to Titan Cameraman's level to try and burn him, but Titan Cameraman puts his ability to shame and absolutely fries this toilet. After defeating all of the toilets, he gives the cameraman a thumbs up and flies away. Okay, so this is the end of this video, but let me explain why this video is a part 1. This first part is basically just to test the waters to see if there is an actual audience for this content here. After I'm done with the analysis saga, I'm potentially going to expand the series. This could be looking into the sound design, the world building, constructive criticism, and so much more. So yeah, if the analysis saga does well, I might potentially do those ideas that I just listed off. You want to see something insane before I end this video? So part 1 of this is already 14 minutes long, and look at the pages I have on this document. I've read about 12 and a half pages, and I still have 50 something pages to go. So in theory, whenever I add all the parts together, this should be an hour-long video. Just thought I'd point that out. All right, let's see how this video does, and if this does well, you might be seeing me soon.